Knowledge, the key to the secrets of the universe. Man's pursuit of the mystery surrounding the UFO and the Etherians continues. And although many books have been written about the subject, the best available information is speculation. Notwithstanding their similarity to man, the Etherians' body is different from man's. They live in their own dimension, so we see only their servants, the humanoids. The Etherian overlords of the UFO have thinking minds, feelings, and emotions like we do. They have a strong sense of will and a strong sense of purpose. And they live in their own dimension, so they can't set foot in our material world. But the Etherians seem to be sampling our dimension by human kidnappings and the taking of animals and the taking of sophisticated electronic devices made by our Earthman scientists. The Etherians seem to want to know what we are doing, and we had better know too. Think about what we are doing to ourselves, because it could have a profound effect on beings in other dimensions. And this whole question about UFOs could be a much larger question than devices simply flying around in our airspace. We will meet the Etherians, the overlords of the UFO, when we are worthy.
The first words of Genesis are Beresheth, and this could be easily translated to say, from what was left from the past. In the Bible we have, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, God went along and created all good things and said that they were all good. He created lights and grass and life on planet Earth. But if you're looking at the story of Genesis, you'll find that there's actually two creation myths within Genesis, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. And when Genesis 1 and God creates man, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the earth. And he created all things, and so God created man in his own image. Could that mean that God was a man? And then God blessed them, and he told them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Now, this was before the creation of Adam and Eve, and he's telling mankind to replenish the earth. And I'll tell you that replenish means to repopulate. Therefore, there seems to have been a population prior to the first telling of Genesis. Then Genesis 2 comes along, and we get the story started over again. All of a sudden, everything is waste and void again. And God gets around to building everything, and on the seventh day, he rests. Then he decides that he needs to create man, form him of dust, and breathe life into him, and this became the living soul of man. And he put man into the Garden of Eden and told him that there is a good place for you to till the land, and the gold is also very good there. So why don't you get to work, Adam, and plant these fields and dig gold for me? Well, he told them that it would be quite fine if we created you another one, and they took Eve from Adam. And the interesting thing is that in the original text, the Sumerian text, the word Eve also means rib. So it says that we created man or woman from man from Adam's rib. Now, interestingly enough, it comes along and Adam and Eve are told, well, you know, you can eat whatever you like, but stay away from the tree of knowledge, for you will surely die. And don't eat of the tree of life, because then you're going to be one of us. So then the serpent comes along, and according to Sumerian mythos, the serpent was a god named Enki, and he's connected with the watery abyss. He's one of the early fish gods, Enki, and he's known as the serpent as well. So the serpent was the subtle one, just hit still, more subtle than any beast in the field. And he told Eve, hey, if you go ahead and eat of this tree, you'll be just fine. You will not die. And so Eve eats of the tree, and next thing, lo and behold, they happen to notice that they were naked, and they got the knowledge of good and evil. So God, not being omnipotent, came into the garden, tried to find Adam and Eve, and was like, hey, where are you guys? And they were hiding because they now knew they were naked, and their aprons weren't quite covering all their bits and pieces. So they wanted to hide from God, and then God's like, oh, you must have eaten of the tree of knowledge. I told you not to. But they also told him that he would die, and they did not. So Adam and Eve, they were cast out, and Adam got to know his wife a little better, and they had children born to them, and these were Cain and Abel. And if you needed any more proof that there were still humans on the earth before Adam and Eve, when Cain slew Abel, he next told God, well, if you've driven me out from the face of the earth, and my face shall I hide, I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and I shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. Okay, so when he was sent to the land of Nod, Cain, after killing Abel, he was worried because all the people out in the land of Nod were going to kill him. So this should give you a clue that there were humans with Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve were simply a special bunch that were noted in the Bible. And what you'll find that the Bible is actually the books of the generations of Adam. So what we have is a lineage of Adam and Eve. Well, Adam and Eve go on, and they give birth to a few more children, and their children give children, and we go through Cain, and we get Enoch. And now Enoch was the most beloved of God, and he was taken to heaven without never knowing death. And you'll find that most of the magicians that we talk about are practicing Enochian magic. And then Enoch gave birth to Arad, and Arad to Mahujael, and then Methuselah, and then down to Lamech, who also was a murderer, only he murdered 2 people, and so instead of Cain's 7-fold punishment, Lamech was expecting a 77-fold punishment. And of course, he gave birth to Jabal, and Tubal-Cain, and these are all code words within Freemasonry. Any Freemason will know what I'm talking about. So we see then that the line continues on, and finally the line of Lamech and from Cain comes down, and we get to Noah. Now, in the days of Noah, things changed.
Because it is sometimes so unbelievable, the truth escapes becoming known.
The answer to all this and the clue to this cosmic riddle may be found in the ancient book of Genesis. And back there in chapter 6, we are told of a very amazing and bizarre event. The sons of God saw the daughters of men and saw that they were beautiful, and they lusted after them. And then we read they married them and sired children from them. The ancient interpretation, and in my opinion the correct one, is that the sons of God were demonic beings or fallen angels, and that they came down to earth, they lusted after the daughters of men, they married them, and produced this amazing progeny, this hybrid progeny of the Nephilim. And the very word Nephilim does not mean giants. It comes from the root Nephal, fallen ones.
Now, there are many biblical references to UFOs. We constantly find them throughout here, and you can interpret them as such. The book of the story of Ezekiel is one of the classic ones, where he sees wheels within wheels, and the cherubim or angels next to them moving with it. So, if you go through the Bible, you will continually find different references to these arrivals, and even different Satans or adversaries that were placed in front of people that they had to deal with. And you'll find that the angels were actually human in form and would show up and people would know no difference, that somehow through their dress they would know them to be angels. And there's the story where they were at Lot's house and the people and the homosexuals were trying to have sex with the angels. So we'll find that these angels were very much seemingly human. And then we find that the Native Americans also have very similar tales of extraterrestrial involvement with life on Earth. So what's going on now in Israel?
More evidence that UFOs could have wide-ranging implications to mankind can be found in the wave of sightings caught on tape in the Holy Land. Israeli UFO researchers believe these strange craft could be tied to the scripture.
It seems like every race of UFO and alien are rushing to Israel in the last 12 years. The Bible does describe what we call UFOs today.
I don't think mankind ever had a chance.
Morning Sky believes humans are genetically designed to be submissive species. Our fate to be monitored and controlled by aliens he calls star beings.
And I'm going to suggest even the creation of mankind and his evolution is all designed to make man a servant of, in quotation marks, the gods. If you simply replace gods with star beings, I'm going to suggest that our purpose, per their intent, their schedule, is to keep us as loyal, devoted, faithful servants, praising the heavens on high and the beings that reside there.
Morning Sky contends that the cosmic bell is now tolling, according to this Hopi Indian prophecy of doom.
So it's not just a biblical thing, it's worldwide, and we're going to get into India and some other places around the country and discuss their different exopolitics or extraterrestrial involvement with the humans on Earth. One group that I found fascinating, and I've had two of them on the show, are the Raelians. And they propose that they are actually in contact with Yahweh, and Yahweh is flying on a craft, a flying saucer, came down and met Ra-El. And if you look at Ra-El's name, you'll see that it's Ra, which is Lord in Egypt, and El, which is Lord in Hebrew. So Ra-El, which of course is part of Israel. And the symbol that the Nephilim, the fallen ones, or Yahweh, whichever you want to think it is, that they gave to Ra-El was a Star of David interwoven with a swastika. Let's have a look.
So have ancient astronauts visited our planet? Seeded civilization? One group certainly thinks so. They're known as the Raelians. And their leader, Ra-El, was a race car driver from France until he was contacted by an extraterrestrial race who said they were our gods, the Nephilim. And they gave Ra-El a message. They told him to prepare humanity for their arrival by building an embassy in Israel. The symbol the Nephilim gave Ra-El offended a few people for its Kabbalistic roots, or worse. So they softened the symbol to appease. Ra-El was given one other task, to prepare humanity for the new age of longevity through genetic manipulation. So he stood before Congress, and he told them, in the beginning, the Nephilim created mankind through genetic manipulation. We will do no different. If you ban cloning today, you're simply postponing the inevitable, and we're going to do it anyway. They announced the birth of Eve on December 25th, 2001.
This was the day that they announced the birth of Eve, and I was watching as Bridget Bousselet announced that they had birthed their first human clone, Eve. She was born in Florida, but they couldn't tell you who she was or where she was because she was an illegal creation. We still haven't said that it's okay to genetically clone humans, but Clonaid says that they're doing it. They followed this clone by cloning a baby in France to a lesbian couple, and then they cloned a dead boy in Japan to bring their dead boy back alive. The parents had saved a viable cell. Now, interesting to note is that mummification, the ancient Egyptian practice of mummification, which we still can't do, we don't know the secret ingredient that keeps the mummy contained within its, without rotting. And mummification actually saves a viable cell, and these gods could actually resurrect all of the ancient pharaohs that have been mummified. So could this be the answer that we're looking for? Is this the way of traveling through space by constantly cloning? And the aliens and even the Russian newspaper Pravda announced that they now had the technology to transmit your body or your soul into an e-body, into an electronic body where you would then have your consciousness transmitted via radio frequency waves to an electronic body waiting on the bottom of the ocean or on another planet, and you could then walk that planet inside of this robot. Your consciousness would be transmitted there. There seems to be still some problems with the translation methods, and they maybe haven't mastered it yet, but it certainly was front page news for Pravda to announce that they did have this technology. So, as we're looking to seeing races coming to planet Earth from billions and billions of light years away, perhaps this genetic manipulation is the key or the clue that we're missing. Let's have a look.
Earth Base 1, spaceships would have to spend hundreds of years in flight. To transport and sustain life over such an extended time, space-traveling civilization would have to ship an entire colony of men across a galaxy in suspended animation. Did it happen in the past? Was this the secret of early space travelers? We now know how it might have been done. In 1952, Dr. Chang took a number of fertilized eggs from the womb of a rabbit and carried them to England. There, the eggs were implanted in the womb of another rabbit, where they came to term. The offspring, in turn, became pregnant. Their fertilized eggs were then taken from England and implanted in the Worcester rabbits. The Worcester colony is now composed of the descendants of that first embryo implantation. In the same manner, a colony of fertilized human eggs, or embryos, might be kept alive during the long journey between the stars. Periodically, several embryos would be implanted into female crew members, be born, grow, and take their place in the crew, caring for the embryo colony that would one day be planted on a new world, light years from their home planet.
So Earth Base 1, this statue here actually tells about the moon being captured and put into Earth's orbit. Now, people didn't believe it when the reports came out that these are what these ancient statues were talking about, because this just seems so unfathomable. But as we learn more and more, we start to find out, well, one, the moon seems to be hollow. I've actually seen the flag that Buzz Aldrin brought back from the moon that had the Supreme Mother Council seal, the double-headed eagle of the Freemasons, because all of our astronauts are Freemasons. And then when they landed on the moon, they said the moon rang out like a gong for 6 hours, and they thought that perhaps it was hollow. And we find that the things on the moon are actually not anywhere similar to Earth, and so the moon is not of Earth. It is its own body, and it's my personal belief that the Earth was placed around the massive hunk of Earth that was left to stabilize it so it could be recolonized. But as we search the moon, we find that it has titanium and other essential metals very necessary for space travel. And I find that these necessary metals are very intriguing in understanding why we've been mining this planet for gold for so long, because gold is, of course, very good for technology. But then we find all of these ancient pictures or sculptures of these strange clothed men with hooded, seemingly within spacesuits, and these sculptures were made almost 2,000 years ago. So we got to wonder where they got the idea. And then you see here these jets, and what you find is that technology stays within natural boundaries, and it has to, so a jet will always look like a jet, and technology must remain within the standard operations of nature. This column stands outside of New Delhi, and it is a column that is way too long. You can let that play a little bit more. It is way too long for that to have been forged at the time that they say it was forged. Okay. It's too long to have been forged when they say it was forged, and it's made of an iron that doesn't rust. It's been there for almost 2,000 years and it's never rusted, although it's begun rusting now, and they think it's probably all the pollution we're creating. The only iron we know of that doesn't rust comes from the moon. Play on.
The deep jungles of Central America make an ideal hiding place for a colony cut off from its home planet. To this day, the steaming, malaria-ridden lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula remain largely unexplored. Yet this is the home of the most mysterious people on Earth, the Mayans. We are asked to believe that the Mayans were simple farmers, but no logical reason exists for them to have planted crops on the most difficult of all land. No, the Mayans came here not to farm, but to hide. No records tell where they come from. No evidence explains where they have gone. Priests were the repository of all Mayan knowledge. They alone possessed a secret language, distinct from that used by the rest of the people. A language they brought from somewhere else and jealously preserved. There are many other indications that they are not of the Earth. We know of their advancements. They developed mathematics to a high art. They invented the figure 0. They developed a calendar so exact, our modern astronomical devices have improved upon it by only 17 seconds out of an entire year. They also had a calendar which accurately measured a 260-day year, obviously not a year on Earth. Perhaps it is a year on the planet from which they came. According to legend, Inca kings thrust their fists into the depths of the snake chiseled into the stone. From it, they received a special power. A compass needle thrust into that same snakehead will spin wildly, for the stone is heavily magnetized. How did the Inca, who knew nothing of the forces of electromagnetism, select this one stone of all the thousands of others that composed their fortress as the magic stone of the snake? We do not know, but one thing is certain. With that special power, their empire spread from the Pacific coast to the Amazon jungle.
So electromagnetivity plays heavily into a lot of the things that we're dealing with today. We're dealing with these electromagnetic frequencies. They're being used against us in warfare and even in homeland security. And when I have Isaac Bonowitz on the show, we're going to discuss the electromagnetic properties of magic. This is something that, if you notice, the priest held the information, and they didn't pass it on to the common man or the uninitiated. So we're dealing with an energy power that we don't yet understand, and many have been looking into these ancient structures, the pyramids, and you've most likely heard of pyramid power. And there are some serious researchers doing research into pyramid power. Also, the very same people that are doing this are also ones that are heavy opponents to the HARP technologies. And so let's have a listen to what they have to say about that.
Mayan pyramids may have been the first in the world, the models for all the great pyramids. And here too we find connection to outer space. The very shape of the pyramid gives a clue to the secret of immortality. An enterprising young physicist, Dr. Patrick Flanagan, interprets the link.
Strange things happen inside the pyramid, but no one was able to pinpoint what these forces were. And my research for the last 3 years has been on pinpointing these forces and discovering what the effect is. I've discovered that the pyramid is sort of a cosmic greenhouse. By this, we know that the pyramid shape is designed to intercept certain cosmic energies from cosmic particles.
Dr. Lawrence at Ecola Institute shows...
So these cosmic energies and cosmic particles are something that we're starting to discover now, or should I say rediscover, because all of this stuff is technology that we would put into the ancient mythical lands of Atlantis. And definitely there's a lot of information to discuss about this topic, and we won't be able to get into all of that here. But one of the main ones that a lot of people are using today is this orgone technology. And what it is it's an energy that Wilhelm Reich discovered, and he calls it orgone or etheric energy. And I wear my personal orgonite, which is supposed to dissipate the negative orgone energies. There are other tools and uses that tools that can be used for this purpose, and a lot of people have been building these orgonites or love grenades and also these orgone generators in hopes of dispersing these heavy chemtrails that we're having. And we're going to learn a lot more about those chemtrails here in December. So these cosmic energies are not something that are that far out, but definitely Wilhelm Reich's technology was suppressed, and that's why most of us don't know anything about it. But let's have a look at some of the ideas of orgone energy and maybe get a little weird too.
That the alien intelligences of the UFO might be in cosmic communication by use of a high-level energy which we know as etheric, bioplasmic, orgone, or nearly 100 similar names. But it is unrecognized in our science and in our civilization, which runs and communicates on the energies of the electromagnetic spectrum. Uri Geller mentally directs his biological energy and that of other people, and they bend mental keys. In the vicinity of UFOs, aircraft lose electrical control and instrumentation, and without doubt their structural integrity is also affected by this energy which bends keys. Other more incredible things are happening. During a single year, for instance, nearly 10,000 head of farmers' livestock have been mutilated in an area from Texas to eastern Oregon and Washington. Police and agricultural scientists alike are helpless. No flying predator exists which mutilates an animal's tender parts or swallows it up completely, leaving behind a bare skeleton. invisible flying predators, which can be photographed with the aid of an ultraviolet filter 18A and Ectacolor film. This was first accomplished by Trevor James Constable, a UFO researcher for a quarter of a century. Constable, in Southern California, builds equipment which gathers orgone energy, or etheric, or biological energy. Years ago, he noted that his energy-gathering devices attracted invisible critters. The invisible flying predator. There seems no other explanation of what has happened to the thousands of mutilated animals. Once again, a new scientific door is opened, and through it we see invisible animals which can fly by degravitating themselves and which seem to live off the biological energy of other land-bound animals. They may or may not have any connection with the spacecraft UFOs, but it seems they have been mistaken for configurated UFOs with their humanoid crewmen, bound on their separate mission of the study of inhabitants by means of kidnappings and sample gathering of Earthman's devices.
Now, this all might seem way out for you, but I am going to absolutely have the best researchers and the top scholars on these subjects coming on the show. We'll have Linda Moulton Howe on, and she's big into the cattle mutilations, and those are very intriguing. And there was even a mutilated cattle dropped on the doorstep of NORAD. Some people think just as a warning to let them know that these guys can go wherever they choose. There's lots of stories of Eisenhower making an agreement with the Greys and allowing the abduction of humans. The stories run all through civilization, and you're going to find stories of these gremlins, the little people, even the flashy thingy from Men in Black is told as the golden wand or the golden apples. And what we're looking at here is high technology. Now, personally, I feel that the Greys are subterranean earthlings and have been here as long as humans. But we live in a very special time right now, and we're going to be seeing some really wild stuff in our near future, I'm sure of that. And the people that seem to be able to incorporate this into their reality the best are those from India. Because the Indian Rig Veda absolutely talks of all kinds of flying craft and arrivals.
Throughout the world, there are references to interplanetary travel. To some scholars, the world's oldest source of wisdom is in India. This chant is part of a spoken encyclopedia called the Veda. It is at least 5,000 years old and may represent the oldest body of technical knowledge known to man. The references to space travel are direct. Clear descriptions are given of the craft that was used and the method of propulsion. The Veda, committed to paper 400 years ago, is still the target of intensive research by scholars such as Padmasri Sivaramamurthy, the director of the National Museum of India.
In ancient India, as all over the world, they had a desire to travel in the sky. We have the aerial car of the god of light Surya mentioned in the Rig Veda itself. We have also the Pushpaka Vimana, the wonderful aeroplane that could carry any number mentioned in the Ramayana. A real aerial car managed by an engine. The rishis could transport themselves to any planet that they wanted because of their siddhi.
So, if we had the ability to travel to any planet in our solar system and perhaps even out of it, then is it that inconceivable to think that there would be architecture on other planets? I am a big fan of Richard C. Hoagland and his research. He does fantastic research. I highly recommend looking into his stuff. You can find it linked on my website. The Cassini satellite sent back images of Saturn's moon, which Iapetus, which looks just like the Death Star. And I wonder how much George Lucas really knows, because a lot of his story really fits the story of the ancient astronauts. And the Death Star definitely fits right in there with the destruction of the planets and the great catastrophe that occurred, if we believe the Atlantean, Lemurian story. And personally, I think that Atlantis was Mars. This may not follow Plato, but that doesn't really matter in my book, because enough of the information doing symbolism and just the Masonic information that I look at makes me think that man inhabited Mars. And it's my personal theory that white man comes from Mars and came down and landed in the Caucasus Mountains and invaded planet Earth. That the people of planet Earth, their Sidhi, was so powerful that these Atlanteans or Martians couldn't destroy them. And so the Atlanteans ended up destroying everything. And I believe when they did, they moved to Earth. And so now we're finding amazing structures on Mars. And I've seen images that show Tesla technology on Mars. And remote viewers are seeing life on Mars. NASA workers are reporting that they're seeing humans walking on Mars. Mars has been in the consciousness of humanity, of planet Earth, for a long time. And for the longest time, people thought it was inhabited. And there was a lot of talk about the canals on Mars. And it's interesting that Atlantis was also known for its canals. And in the symbolism, you'll find that the red square, actually in magic and symbolic terms, means Mars man. Red being Mars and the square being man. So, could there be life on Mars?
But we're here today to provide exciting scientific findings and to lay out compelling clues that lead us to the direction that we think life might have existed at some point on Mars.
But then the orbiter took photographs of something that seemed to defy the Martian geography. Don Ecker, the research director of UFO Magazine, knows one possible explanation.
They have come forward with the hypothesis that this, in fact, very likely represents an artificial construction.
Whatever it is, the object is huge, over a mile long and 1,500 feet high. As to what it is, these pictures are worth thousands of words. This huge object appears to be a gigantic sculpture of a humanoid face staring up into the Martian sky.
It looked like a face to me.
Dr. Carlotto's enhancement technique is applied to the original images. What was just a blurry image becomes a three-dimensional image of a face, a pyramid, and a fortress.
Now, when we step back, we see the face is not an isolated formation. We see a collection here to the southwest that has been termed the city. We step further back, there are still more unusual objects in relative close proximity. And then to the south, a formation that appears to be a five-sided pyramid called the D&M pyramid.
The fact that the Great Pyramid is level over an area of 14 acres within 1/2 of an inch and is the world's most accurately aligned building to true north, and the fact that it incorporates higher mathematics in its very design, indicate that a superior race designed the Great Pyramid.
We know the Mayans left a calendar, one that stretches back more than 90 million years, long before civilized man roamed the earth, and forward in time to a day that will mark the close of a crucial cycle. An inscription tells us that the modern period will end December 24th, 2011 AD. We may presume that they were computing the length of a space voyage and marking the exact date of return.
Now, the truth of the Mayan calendar is that nobody really knows why it stops on that date. And I found it interesting that they said December 24th, 2011 in that documentary, when most people consider it to be December 21st or the winter solstice of 2012. We're still working on all of that stuff, and you know, it is so amazing that this ancient knowledge encoded in ancient structures, it's still beyond our own comprehension here in the 21st century. And there's structures such as Baalbek, Lebanon, that have blocks that are 1,200 tons. We do not own a crane in the 21st century that can lift it. There are structures from our ancient past that we cannot create. The pyramids themselves were built in such a perfectly aligned fashion that we've never been able to come close to that. So could this be the date of the return of the Nephilim? Could this be what all of this is leading to? Is there a major astrological or astronomical event that's going to occur at that time? None of us really know. We're just left with these clues. Certainly the pyramids on Mars seem to be aligned with, well, Washington, D.C. is what I've heard, and so the Cydonia connected with Washington, D.C. And there are other ancient recordings as well, and interesting UFO activity going on right now.
These unexplainable UFOs videotaped over Israel have never been sighted anywhere else in the world. Some believe the Holy Land may hold special significance for visitors from other worlds. Even Israeli television has broadcast images of possible UFOs on the news. However, according to Chamish, the Israeli military has secretly viewed UFOs as a possible threat. Even NASA's own cameras are capturing strange disc-shaped objects that seem to demonstrate technology that might be more advanced than our own. But what's more astounding is that some experts think these discs could be tied to our Earth's past and might also be memorialized in ancient artifacts.
In 1938, high in the mountains of China, archaeologists discovered these round stones with a black dot in the middle and little notches out of the side. Now, if you notice in the UFO here, we have a black hole in the middle and a little notch in the side. The discs that were discovered in China also had a carved, spiraling wave that radiated from the center of the dot all the way to the outside of the periphery. It was a perfect match. I believe that these Dropa stones were made as artifacts to record what the ancient peoples of China saw in the skies. The same thing that we're seeing on this tape.
Now, I found it very intriguing because I actually drew a picture of that craft when I was 10 years old, and I even put the Syrian symbol on there. And David Sereda comes back and he says that he believes that these are water people from Sirius. And I was flabbergasted when I heard him say that, because these are the same findings I'm coming to through using symbolism and just intuition. Now, we're going to have Dr. Michael Sala on the show, and he's the head of the Exopolitics Institute, and we're going to discuss the 57 different alien species interacting with human life on planet Earth. So I don't feel that when we're looking at crafts like that one that was filmed from the Columbia Space Shuttle, that we're looking at, we're seeing one race there, and there are many that we're dealing with here on planet Earth, and we're going to find out more and more here on the Freeman Perspective. So I feel that the ones that are abducting us are the little gray fellows, and they seem to be crossbreeding with us. And I personally, as I was looking at it through the years, I decided that they were trying to get to the surface at this time. I think we live in a very special time. And I think that these guys, if you look at them, they've got little skinny arms, skinny legs, and big bulbous heads, and well, they're ant people, right? They're subterranean beings, no matter where they're from. Personally, I think they've been living here on Earth as long as we have, and they're told in many ancient stories. The Hopi called them the Anasazi, the ant people. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. They were the genetically crafted race that mined this planet, that revolted against the gods and left them to decide to create humans to do the work instead. And that's where we come back to the story of Adam and Eve. So I have my own personal fears of these abductions, because as I told you last week, I do have a personal abduction story. And with my father being in Project Blue Book and building nuclear missiles and being worshipful master in a Freemason lodge, I am one of the high probability people to these abductions, because they do follow family lines.
You have to think, or maybe possibly speculate, that if they have captured flying saucers, that there might possibly be pilots or occupants of those flying saucers.
Nightmarish memories from his own childhood are bad enough. But even worse is the possibility that the experience may be repeated with his wife and young children. Like many ufologists, Dr. X has come to believe that alien abduction runs in families.
Case after case, we have females where it seems that ova is being taken. We have other cases where fetuses seem to be taken from women who are used as surrogate mothers. We're talking about what looks like a genetic engineering interest or program.
I'm scared for my kids, but there's precious little I can do to help them. It's created some tense feelings between my wife and myself. I say, if it's happening to me, there's a good chance that it's going to happen to our children.
Dr. Pierre Guérin, an eminent scientist associated with the French National Council for Scientific Research, concludes that UFO behavior is more akin to magic than to physics as we know it, and that modern UFOnauts and the demons of past days are probably identical.
Aleister Crowley, certainly the most infamous magician out there, known as the Antichrist and the Beast, says simply that magic is the science and art of causing change to occur with conformity of the will. Magic was the highest knowledge of natural philosophy, and the magician differed from the witch in this, that while the latter was an ignorant instrument in the hands of the demons, the former had become their master.
The word demon in Greek comes from the root meaning knowledge or intelligence, implying that demons have access to knowledge and information denied to ordinary mortals.
After what happened to me, the communion experiences, I decided that that might be a good idea to accept the idea of the devil, just in case that's what I saw. If you look closely at the life of the world, you see the workings of evil in the world. There seems to be a sort of machinery behind it that is far beyond just the accident of human life.
So, are these extraterrestrials, or this particular brand of extraterrestrial demons, are they channeled through these Enochian magic? Are they brought forth through these rituals that are passed down through the priesthoods? The Freemasons will tell you that their practices are identical to the ancient mysteries that have been passed throughout time. We find that there is a technology that's been passed throughout time from the ancients up to Moses, and Moses gets the Ark of the Covenant and then can go on, and it's the first weapon of mass destruction given to mankind. Then we find that this power was discovered by the Templars, and they become the most powerful nation in the world until the Pope and the King decide to destroy them and take all of their property. But they didn't get everything. The Templars had enough forewarning to take everything out in their ships. And of course you would recognize their symbol on their ships, the skull and bones, which is of course the same symbols that we see there in the ancient Mayan structures. This story is a long, drawn-out path that I think is very necessary to understanding what is going on planet Earth today. Because if you're not incorporating this ancient astronaut story into this whole idea of the New World Order, then you're missing a big portion of the puzzle. We are going to have Giorgio Tsoukalos on the show next week, so you definitely want to tune in for that. Giorgio Tsoukalos is the chairman and director of the research at the Center for Ancient Astronaut Research. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him because there's been many new things come about within this storyline. They just found the tomb of Gilgamesh. You see the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I'm waiting to find out more about what happened, because now Gilgamesh was one of the children of the gods, or the sons of God, that became king and ruler of Sumeria, or a town and a city within Sumeria. And he was so violent, and he would rape women and beat his people, and he was a really horrible king. He kept claiming, well, I'm 2/3 God, you know, I deserve to leave the planet. It's my right. But the gods wouldn't let him leave the planet. And if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is actually the oldest book ever written, this is way back in 3000 BC, you will find that he goes through a series of events where he's trying to get off the planet. He tries to break through the barriers, and they finally actually create a being for him to fight with, to keep him preoccupied, so he'll quit, you know, beating up his people and quit trying to get off the planet because they weren't going to let him leave. And the being that they created for him was known as Enkidu, and the description of him is identical to Bigfoot. So you'll find that Bigfoot actually fits into this whole story, and none of this is too amazing to be true. As we move forward into time and we start to discover these new technologies, and we start to be able to do the things that the ancients said that they could do, and things that seemed like mythology back 100 years ago now start to seem a bit more like reality, and that there is actually more to life on planet Earth than we've been told. Certainly it's been shown that humans cohabitated with dinosaurs, that the human race actually goes back millions of years. Maybe I can get Michael Cremo on the show and we'll talk about forbidden archaeology. So, you know, what we're looking at now is we've got this New World Order, which is an ancient world structure. It's based off of all of this knowledge that we're talking about. They have the clues and the understanding. They are the priesthood that initiate us into this understanding, and they're keeping it from us. But certainly the Boeing Prometheus Mars mission shows architecture on Mars, so it's official within NASA realms and other higher realms within the military-industrial complex that these things are true. We are dealing with a number of things on planet Earth, and we are in a point now where it's all coming to a head. And as the book of the Bible goes on to say that we move into the age of revelation, well, revelation is the knowledge of our ancient past as we start to discover just really who humanity is and why we are on planet Earth. So I often wonder if these rituals that I'm seeing, the ritual of 911, the ritual of the shock and awe, and then just the inner rituals going on within the temples of these magicians' realms, are not continual contact with these beings, because that's what it seems to be. As I look into magic, I continually come across the fact that magic is set up to make contact with pan-dimensional or multi-dimensional beings. Then we're finding hyperdimensional physics encoded into the pyramids, and Richard C. Hoagland will continue to show you the different hyperdimensional physics encoded in the structures and used by the Freemasons within their rituals, showing you 19.5 degrees on Sirius above the equator, when this ritual occurred. He'll even tell you that they had to wait on the second plane hitting the tower because the astrological timing wasn't exactly right yet. So it could be that magic and demons and extraterrestrials are all one story. There's no reason why that shouldn't be true. Everything seems to lead up to that, and it appears that we are now returning to the days of Noah, the days of revelation, when the sons of God are returning to Earth. The Columbia Space Shuttle showing you footage, where Cassini's showing you footage, the Mars probe, and of course I didn't get into Phobos, but if you look into Mars's moons, Phobos, you'll find that there's something pretty strange going on with Phobos as well. And it looks a lot like the Death Star, but not as much as Iapetus looks like the Death Star. So. But definitely tune in next week for Giorgio Tsoukalos. I'm so looking forward to talking to him because he is, head of this type of stuff, and he will really lay it out for us. So check in, and I'll talk to you all next week. Have a good night. Aleister Crowley was contacted by an extraterrestrial. His name was Owas, and he channeled a book to Aleister Crowley known as the Book of the Law. This very book is housed here in Austin at the Harry Ransom Center. I went up there to check it out, but a strange man came along and kind of gave me the eye, and they weren't going to let me film it anyway, so I left. But let's see what Owas told Crowley. He says, "I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory, and stir the hearts of men with drunkenness. To worship me take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet and be drunk thereof. They shall not harm ye at all. It is a lie, this folly against self. The exposure of innocence is a lie. Be strong, O man, lust. Enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any God shall deny thee for this."
Jesus said, "As in the days of Noah, so in the days of the coming of the Son of Man." Of all the patriarchs and prophets of the Old Testament, the key to prophecy above all others is Noah. And something happened in the days of Noah that was a distinctive characteristic of Noah's time that didn't happen before or after. Wars and famines and pestilences and natural disasters have always happened. But something happened in the days of Noah, and the most sinister and bizarre of all the things that happened was this intermarriage between the angelic race and the human race. And of course the mastermind behind it all was another angel, a fallen angel, Lucifer. Now we believe that as they came in those days, we may very well be on the edge of another invasion from outer space. That Satan will once again make another attempt, maybe the final assault on the human race, in order to wean men and women away from the worship of God. He has tried before, he will inevitably try again. And by seducing the human race, by sending these so-called entities from space, demonic beings, he will try to get people all over the world to worship him and to deprive God of the worship that is due to him. Fortunately, we know what the end result is going to be. But this final or omega assault that will come at the end of time may trigger the coming back of Jesus Christ to rescue his own. Satan has failed before, and the Bible predicts he will fail again. We are told quite emphatically in God's word that the kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdom of our God and of his Christ. Satan will make the attempt, but our God, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world.
Each provocative case needs to be studied until firm answers are found. Some experts, as well as videographers, believe that governments are not doing enough to solve the UFO enigma.
I don't think that UFOs come from such a high level of mystery that we're incapable of understanding them. I think that we have yet to launch the kind of investigation that the mystery deserves.
They seem to be psychologically preparing, setting us up for some ultimate delusion that is too horrible even to imagine as yet. I would agree with that.